Okay, Chris, so I come up to Tales for Troops. Where do you hold it? I know it's over at is it McDade Park?
Yes. This year it'll be held at McDade Park on April 18th.
That's right off Kaiser Avenue,
Yes.
correct, in Scranton?
Yep, and we have the larger pavilion by the pond already reserved. It'll be from noon to 4. It's a dog-friendly event, so if anybody would like to come, please bring their dog. The more the merrier.
Dogs are the star of the show.
Exactly. But it's going to be a day of camaraderie, festivities, and music and food, and just appreciating what veterans have done for our country and how we can better help them.
18th is a Saturday or Sunday?
It's a Saturday.
It's a Saturday, so no one has the excuse that they have to go to work, we hope. Mm-hmm. And the veterans groups locally, the VFWs, the American Legions, do they participate, and how active do they get?
They actually get pretty active. We have a large majority of the local VFW posts who are committed to coming out and being vendors and meeting with the public and other veterans who haven't necessarily become members of the VFW in order to talk to them about why it's so important. Joel and myself are actually members of the McAdoo AMVETS post, as well as members of VFWs. And it's important because this younger generation has to get involved, because the only people that are going to fight for our rights are us.
You're absolutely right. And Weed O'Malley and Langen have been talking about trying to get a day of action started up at Griffin Pond Animal Shelter, where we'll bring some of the vets from St. Francis and other vets like your guys up to spend a little time at the shelter, raise some money for the shelter, raise some money to try to get some dogs trained so they have the ability to get the dogs in the hands of veterans where they're needed. These dogs have to be trained, though, don't they?
Yes.
Who does the training for them? Do we have any local trainers?
Not to our knowledge. We've been actually looking in the area. There's one company that's very, very small out in New York. They do a couple dogs maybe every year, every other year. But really, Paws and Stripes is the main training facility.
And there's a real need for these dogs, is there not?
Oh, yes.
Oh. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think everybody recognizes that whatever we can do for our veterans with PTSD and traumatic brain injury, we spend a lot of time talking about professional athletes who have mild traumatic brain injury. But the concussions they get on the football fields, nothing like the concussions that somebody riding in a up-armored troop carrier who hits an IED will feel. And this was a war that people didn't get killed in. They survived, but they came back with these horrible injuries because our medicine is so good today. The group that I belong to, which is an alumni of the 28th Division, fellas that were in the National Guard, have a dinner, and the first one that I attended, I saw for the first time tables devoted to Gold Star families. And I first said, tell me about this to the fellow who organized the dinner. He said, well, the Pennsylvania National Guard is losing a lot of troops, Dad. And it really struck home, because these were guys that, when I was a senior officer, were coming in as privates and just young guys and second lieutenants that were losing in those wars. And many of them are coming back terribly wounded, and some with the hidden wounds that we see with PTSD. What is your goal this year, Chris, for Tales for Troops?
Our goal this year is to raise $10,000. It's what we managed to raise last year. But we're hoping that if we set the bar a little bit higher, people will be a little bit more willing to donate more. Last year's event was phenomenal, but this year we want to see it grow. The more soldiers that we can help and the more animals we can rescue, the better off everybody will be. It's not just the vets and not just the animals. I mean, these are two problems that we have right now in our society that I feel need to be addressed. But I'm a really big animal lover, so.
Joel, you're a student out here at Marywood?
Yes.
What year are you?
I'm in my senior year.
Senior year?
Yes.
And in the service, what'd you do?
I was an infantryman. I was stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
82nd?
Yes. And I was also stationed at Fort Myer, Virginia, the Old Guard.
Okay. And Chris?
I was an engineer.
Okay. Combat engineer? And where?
All over. I did 8 years reserve, and then I did 2 tours in Iraq from majority of 2003, and then from November 2004 to February, I think it's February of 2006.
ISIS and the need for us to do something about ISIS. As guys that have served, what are your thoughts about sending troops over there?
That's tough. When I first went over, and everybody was talking about withdrawing early on, I made the point of you can't. Once you start something, once we leave, it's going to create a vacuum, and it's exactly what happened.
Colin Powell said, "You break it, you buy it."
Yeah.
And we broke Iraq, and look at where we are, and we bought it, and we still have advisors over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Joel, do you think it's a good idea for us to send a large number of troops over there?
I don't like troops in combat, but I would rather troops in combat somewhere else than the fighting being brought to this country.
Yeah. You know, I I think the greatest mistake this country made was doing away with the draft. I grew up with the draft. When I was in college, I had to draw a number, and my number was low enough, I was going to be drafted. And I was drafted. I was in ROTC so that I was able to avoid the actually being brought in through the draft. I joined. But it's just we have too many people serving that don't represent the whole broad width of the country. You don't see many college guys over there. With the exception of very few, most of your volunteers are people from the lower socioeconomic scale, and it's not right. If everybody bears the sacrifice, we're going to be a lot more careful. So, we come back. I want to get some closing thoughts from you about what we can do for veterans and what's coming up with Tales for Troops. So please stay tuned to You Be the Judge.
For a veteran, the flash of a firework can be a flashback to war. While you're looking for the cereal, he's looking for an ambush. Our soldiers are leaving one battle and coming home to another. We're fighting a war against veteran suicide, and we're losing. In fact, 22 veterans take their own life each day. I know because I was almost one of them. I was U.S. Army paratrooper, Green Beret, eventually in Delta Force. I did 40 months of direct action combat. But I didn't come back the same man who had left 2 decades before. Everyone says, we're glad you're home safe. I wasn't. And many of our veterans are not. They're still at war. So this is your mission. Help us claim the 22. You can give our vets the hope and encouragement they need to get well. And it's as simple as a post or a tweet. Let's turn every 22 into a show of support. When you do, you're letting our vets know they have an army behind them. Let's win the war against veteran suicide.
Your mission begins at mission22.com.
Have you been denied Social Security benefits? You can appeal. If you are disabled and if you have been paying taxes, you've earned your rights to your Social Security benefits. Call O'Malley and Langen. And remember, we don't get paid unless you win.
Welcome back to You Be the Judge. We have a new guest, Zeus. Zeus we've talked about before, but this is the guy that is helping a local veteran as an emotional support dog. And you've seen these dogs actually work with the veterans, haven't you, Chris?
Yes, I have.
And how do they train them?
I don't know the specifics of them, but what they're doing is they're training the dog to be able to respond to the stimuli that the vet is feeling, which may trigger the PTS symptoms. And what they do is they provide not only emotional support, but also the support in the way that the vet knows that there's somebody there to help them. I've seen a couple guys in the area that have them, and when they get into a stressful situation, the dog's able to pick up on that and notice the cues and can come over and comfort them and distract them from whatever might be setting the trigger. So it's beneficial. There's tons of studies out there that have proved that having PTS service dogs is beneficial to.
One of the things that I learned is a friend of mine from college is a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force who is a psychologist, and he does a national seminar on post-traumatic stress, and his feeling is that there are a number of modalities to help people. One of them is equine therapy. Now we have a great program called Marley's Mission up here, really dedicated to children who've been sexually abused. But I think that could be expanded, and I've spoken briefly to Gene Tallarico, and who's helped form that, to see if we can get a veterans component up there. And I'd love to get my friend in here to talk a little bit about equine therapy. So that might be something else for you guys to look at in the future. Joel, what's on the horizon for you guys at the Service Veterans Alliance?
Well, obviously we have Operation Tails for Troops in middle of April on the 18th. After that, we're looking at teaming up with Team Red, White, and Blue. It's a program to help veterans get back into shape, and by doing cardio with them every now and then. Later in the summer, we're planning on actually having a military history Jeopardy night with the veterans over at Gino Murley, and
that's awesome.
We're going to see who the best branch truly is that day. And then obviously next in the fall we're going to have our Veterans Day activities again.
How many students do you have at Marywood University that are veterans and that use the center?
We have currently 105 students who are using some sort of military benefit, whether it's a veteran or a dependent. We have about 75 members of our club, registered members, and we have about 30 of them who are active, who are here all the time, who utilize the center and come here to hang out, study, or just get a load off.
Thank both of you for the work you do, and I thank Lauren in absentia for the work that she's done in Marywood University, because this is really a great thing for our community to have. And thank you for sharing your Sunday morning with us on You Be the Judge.